I'm done with my old intro, so I'm just going to say subscribe if you enjoyed this video and drop a like if you enjoyed this video. But also real quick, I did a documentary video a couple days ago on the 2020 NBA season, and it did not do as well as I would have liked. So if you have not watched that yet, I would really appreciate it if you did so. That is going to be the top link in the description and in the pinned comment below. But with that out of the way, today we are talking about some 2020 NBA free agents, and I will be giving my 5 most underrated free agents of 2020. Now this overall class kind of sucks. However, there are some players that are a little bit higher than they should be in terms of ranking of free agents this year that I do think are going to be pretty good and pretty impactful to the teams that sign them. And there's a lot of potential bargains here, especially because a lot of teams are going to be trying to play it conservative in this offseason due to the amount of available free agents in 2021. So I have a list here. I also want to give some honorable mentions. I have 5 players as well, so this is kind of a top 10, but the other ones I'm not going into too much detail. So Tristan Thompson is like a very good rebounder and a solid defensive player, and you could get him for like $8 million a year. Bismack Biyombo is like just a even cheaper version of Tristan Thompson. You could get him for like $4 million a year. Mason Plumlee is a solid all-around center and a very good underrated passer. You could probably get him for like $8 million a year. DJ Augustine is one of the best backup point guards in the league. I don't know exactly how much he would go for, but he would not be more than like 8. And Langston Galloway shot 40% from 3 on 5 attempts a game this season. He's a very good 3-point shooter, and you could get him for pretty damn cheap as well. So those are the honorable mentions. But the first guy is probably the best player here, and that is Serge Ibaka. Serge is a really good defensive player. He's a good rim protector and pretty quick on his feet, generally speaking, on the perimeter. I will say his defense has looked a little bit suspect lately, but in general, he was one of the best defensive players on his team and one of the better defensive players in the league. So you can expect at least okay defense from Serge Ibaka at the bare minimum. He just had the best offensive season of his career. He shot 38% from 3. He was money from mid-range, and he averaged like, I think, close to 15 points a game. And this was on a Raptors team that had a decent amount of options, so it's not like it was like when he was in Orlando and like suddenly he was like the 3rd option on the team. Like, he was legitimately averaging 15 points within the system, being a good 3-point shooter and an all-around just solid offensive player. Also about 8 rebounds a game, just a good all-around player that is a starting caliber player, and I think you can get him for like probably like, I don't know, it's weird to make salary projections, especially with these guys who are making more money because of what the salary cap might look like. But just assuming the circumstances are normal, I think Serge Ibaka is good for like $18 million a year. I don't know entirely how much of that he's actually going to get based on the cap space this year, but yeah. Davis Bertans, I don't feel like people are hyping him up enough as a top free agent in this class. Like, he is probably he's at bare minimum one of the 10 best free agents this year. And that's because Davis Bertans is one of the 5 best shooters in the NBA. And that is not hyperbole. He is a fantastic 3-point shooter. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Davis, but I'm just going to keep saying Davis. He averaged 15 points per game this season, and he did so shooting 9 threes a game on 43%, many of these threes being heavily contested, off of the catch fading away, even some of them off of the dribble. Bertans is just one of the best 3-point shooters in the league, and for that reason, he's going to get a pretty hefty contract. He's only 27 years old, so he's got a good couple years ahead of him, and I do believe that he is going to get a pretty hefty contract as a result. So Davis Bertans, one of the best 3-point shooters in the league, definitely someone to look out for. Now, this next guy is someone that I have been singing the praises to for a while now, because he played very well in the playoffs, and that is Jeff Green. He was playing center for the Rockets this year, and he did so fantastically. In the playoffs, he averaged 11.6 points a game, around 4 to 5 rebounds, played pretty damn good defense, and had a 63% true shooting percentage, and he shot 43% from 3 on 4 to 5 attempts per game. So he was knocking down his 3-pointers. He was making his 2-pointers as well. I believe he shot like 20% from 2 in the playoffs, so that's something right there. Just all around, Jeff Green was just doing everything he had to and then some, even creating off of the dribble a little bit. Like, Jeff Green, I think there's a problem with his with him as a player is that he's always been inconsistent, but he was consistently good for the Rockets throughout their 12 playoff games I think they played. So, I mean, it could just be a good stretch, but I think he's worth giving that contract and playing him at center because it seems like that's the position that he's built to play in 2020. So that's definitely interesting because Jeff Green started off his career as a small forward, then a power forward, and now he's becoming a center. It shows the evolution of basketball, but also I think it's a pretty good sign that Jeff Green is going to be impactful as a center. Now, as I said, I wouldn't give this guy a huge contract because of his inconsistency of the past. Maybe he plays center on another team and he's just mediocre. But at the very least, I think he's worth like $3 million a year just for the chance that he ends up being this very high-value role player. Brandon Knight. This is another guy that I have been shouting out in my videos when I'm suggesting teams sign free agents. It's because in 9 games with the Pistons, which yes, I understand is a limited sample size, he averaged 11 points and 4 assists, shooting 39% from 3 on 7.4 attempts per game. He also had a 19-point game versus the Phoenix Suns where the Pistons actually won, where he played 25 minutes, shot 7 for 14, and 5 for 11 from 3. The guy has just been solid all around. He also had a 15-point performance, a 16-point performance, and an 18-point performance. He knocks down his threes. He's pretty good in the vision department. Not amazing, but not bad. And he plays his role pretty well. Now, he was getting like 25 plus minutes a game in this case for the Pistons. I don't think he would be getting those minutes on a regular decent team, but for a team looking for a cheap backup point guard option, I don't think there's a better option out there than Brandon Knight because he's going to be a minimum contract guy. He's the cheapest guy here and also probably the worst guy here, but because he shot so well from 3 with the Pistons and just played well within their offense and within the flow of the offense, I think Brandon Knight could be a sleeper hit in this year's free agency because Brandon Knight throughout his career has unfortunately dealt with injury after injury, and he's not played more than 40 games since 2017. But if he can actually get his legs under him and stay healthy, he could definitely be a pretty good player. For the overall 2020 season, with 16 games being played with the Cavs, he averaged 5 threes a game on 34% and about 3 assists per game, playing less minutes with the Cavs than he did the Pistons. But I just think the guy is one of the better three-point shooters in the league when healthy, and on top of that, he knows how to play his role properly. So for that reason, Brandon Knight, I think, deserves a contract from pretty much any team that needs a backup point guard. I suggested him with the Warriors. I think he'd be a fantastic backup to Steph Curry because three-point shooter and he plays his role. Defensively, don't know much about where he is. He wasn't a good defensive player in the past, so probably wouldn't bet too much on that. But Brandon Knight is someone whose praises I will sing until he proves me wrong and ends up sucking with whatever team he joins. But at the very least, he deserves to join a team based on how he played with the Pistons. Last but not least is a player that everyone considers a top free agent in this free agent class. However, I think it's going understated how impactful this player could be based on the comments that he's made. So I'm talking about Danilo Gallinari here. Everyone knows that Gallo is a really good player. Like, he's around a 20-point per game guy for the past couple of years. However, I don't think a lot of people, either they didn't hear these comments or they didn't give them the proper level of gravity that they should have. Because Gallo said that he doesn't really care about money this offseason. He cares more about the winning side of things. Now, that does not mean that he's just going to sign a minimum contract. I seriously doubt that. But if it means even that he's just willing to sign a mid-level exception, that could be massive, because we're talking about a guy that is a lethal three-point shooter, very good at creating his own offense, is a decent rebounder, and is at least not the worst defensive player in the world, who can give you 20 points on any given night, being willing to join a team for like $7 million a year. And that's being willing to join a team that can offer something like that, like the Lakers or the Golden State Warriors or the Milwaukee Bucks, teams of that nature. So landing Gallinari, if he's going to sign with one of those teams, it's going to be a big deal whoever lands Gallinari, because you're getting that level of talent for a lot cheaper than what you really should be for how good he is. When you have a guy on this level of talent being willing to take such a cheap contract, it's kind of a race to see who can get him amongst the top teams in the league, because that's an edge that every team that's at that level is going to need on each other. So I could see him even going to a team like the Miami Heat for a mid-level, or maybe even just like 10 to 11 million, because I think they could actually offer him a decent amount of money because they have some contracts coming off of the books. But Gallinari, if he's willing to sign a mid-level exception, could be probably the most impactful free agent of this class, because everybody else is either going to re-sign with their team or they're going to be signing with teams that are like not as good. Like Fred VanVleet is a guy who might go to a team like the New York Knicks. If that happens, as good as Fred VanVleet is, it's on the Knicks. So in the grand scheme of the NBA, that signing does not have a huge impact. It really just impacts the Knicks and the Toronto Raptors. But if Danilo Gallinari signed with the Bucks, the Lakers, the Clippers, or like the Miami Heat, then that is going to be huge, or the Golden State Warriors. Being able to get a guy on that level that cheap is going to be huge if he is truly if he's truly going to be willing to sign for as little as he's been saying. So yeah, Danilo Gallinari caps off the 5 most underrated free agents of 2020. Once again, please go check out that documentary. I put a lot of work into it, and it was a pain in the ass to get uploaded because of copyright. So I would appreciate it if you watched it, and it's not gonna be a waste of your time, because, you know, not to brag, but it's good. Also, if you want to support this content outside of just your like and subscription, I do have a Patreon where you can go give me some money for some extra content. And yeah, that's the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.